Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to Stoveside Chats. My name is Chad Blackwelder with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. I am the food service marketing specialist. Thank you for, okay, there's Freshpoint. All right, so let's bring in our guest today, which is Lauren Horning of Freshpoint. There she comes. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, did that work?
Yeah, it did.
Awesome.
Yep.
First time ever on Instagram Live. Thanks, Chad.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I didn't know really that much about Instagram before I started doing these interviews almost a year ago. So I've gotten a little bit better, but I'm pretty slow to come around to new technology. So, but thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate you taking just a few minutes out of your time. For those who are joining us, this is Lauren Horning of Freshpoint, part of Freshpoint Raleigh, part of Cisco. And you are the, I guess, the local product specialist. Is that your official title?
Got it. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for being here again. Let's start out like we always do. Tell us about your background and how you got into working for Freshpoint.
For sure. So I am not a North Carolina native. I grew up on a small hobby farm in central Pennsylvania. We had a big garden and grapes and fruit trees. And for my family, we would can and preserve and freeze everything that we didn't eat fresh. And I don't think I had really realized what that meant until I moved away and got older. So I eventually, well, my parents, my dad grew up on a horse farm, and he was the cooperative extension agent for the county. And
Okay.
grew up on a cattle farm. And I eventually went away to college and studied environmental studies and Spanish at Washington and Jefferson College. And I had awesome agriculture opportunities even at a college. I was a woofer in Argentina, so I worked on a couple organic farms for a few months, and then worked on an urban farm in Pittsburgh and studied at some culinary classes at a culinary school in Ecuador when I studied abroad. And came back, when I was back in the States, I realized I had all of these agricultural experiences peppering my life with family farms and sustainability and good food. And so I moved to North Carolina, took a job, and started working for Foster Cabinets and developed their local program. And then switched over to Freshpoint and started developing their local program and really working to get small and mid-sized farms more markets and access into the food system.
That's very cool. Now, when you were growing up on a farm, were you living in the moment, or were you like, gosh, this is such, I don't want to be doing this right now?
It's funny that you ask that because, you know, my memories are dreading working with my dad in the garden, and I didn't want to weed, and you know, we really weren't given much time to watch TV when I was little, so I just wanted to sneak inside and do something else. And so go into agriculture, it's kind of a family joke now that they look back and everyone's like, Lauren, why, you know, you've changed. It was, you know, it's what my roots are. And I guess I kind of wanted to get away from it for a while, but when I talk with farmers now, it's like I'm talking with my dad, and that experience is so important to me.
It really is. My grandfather, you know, who grew up during the you know, like the Depression era, but he always tended a huge garden, and we lived right next door, the first house I remember living in. And having to work in the garden, like I dreaded it back then. I mean, like you said, like it's such a valuable experience that plays into what I do now. But back then I was like, man, I'd rather be on my bicycle or anywhere but, you know, shelling butter beans or, you know, picking corn and all that good stuff. So tell us about Fresh List and what services that you guys offer in the food service industry.
Fresh List, I can do.
I'm sorry, Fresh. That's fine. So I was just emailing with those guys earlier today, so I apologize. Tell us what Freshpoint does.
They're awesome. So Freshpoint, yeah. So Freshpoint are the nation's largest produce distributor, subsidiary of Cisco, And we basically, most of what we do is produce and dairy. So we service restaurants, hospitals, universities, country clubs, retailers. We bring in both local and non-local produce and then ship out to customers year round on refrigerated trucks.
Okay. Um, Now we've talked about your role a little bit with the company. Go into that just a little bit more. Like how do you bring all, how do you work the local and the non-local stuff together and get all that stuff in front of chefs and other end users?
Yep. So my specific role is local sourcing. And so really what I'm looking to do is find farmers, crop plan with them, work out their logistics, help them with marketing, and then I work with customers specifically on the local sourcing side. So I work with chefs to write local menus, to help them understand what's coming in, what crop plans we've done, and then I work on the retail side to help grocery stores. I build local programs for them. So most of the retail side is core crop, and then on the specialty side with chefs, and some chefs are wanting core crop as well.
Yeah. Now, was that a function of you guys just answering those calls within the market, where more and more chefs looking for more local ingredients or more specialized ingredients?
You know, you bring up a really good point. There's the hospitality in general, I think, is catered towards what does the end consumer want, and what are folks asking for. And so as chefs and as consumers have been asking for local, I mean, here in the Carolinas, we're a hotbed for local. Every Freshpoint has a local program. We've really been able to expand ours immensely here in the Carolinas because there is an interest, and we have strong farmers that are wanting to expand. And so I think it's just this overall food system. We're moving forward and able to cater towards what people would like. And we're just kind of in that unique position where we've already got trucks, we're already working with farmers, so it works out well.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I want to talk a little bit more about your local program. And I appreciate what you guys do with that. You guys are awesome partners with the Department of Agriculture and have worked with us at our flavor show. I know you spoke there before all the craziness, and had a really good presentation. Try to include more. For those who don't know, we do a flavor show once a year in Concord and highlight all North Carolina vendors, and folks like Lauren Horning is there as in kind of a buying capacity, I guess, and kind of building, striking up new relationships and hopefully getting some folks to help these smaller people be able to get their products out there. But Lauren did a great piece where she kind of addressed some of the vendors who were there who maybe don't know all it takes to work with someone larger to get their product out there. So thank you for doing that, and our members found that very, very helpful. As far as like, you said you work with local and non-local, what's kind of the ratio there? I know that the local is getting more and more popular. Can you kind of talk about how that's growing and maybe some of the folks that you're working with locally?
Definitely, yeah. So Freshpoint, we define local as grown within 250 miles. So for the Carolinas, that's kind of the whole state. We've got apples out in Western North Carolina, but it's a lot closer than Washington State apples. So it's weird. The geography of North Carolina is a prime hotbed for growing local crops. So when we're working with farmers, we're sourcing, I would say, the bulk from small and mid-sized. Right now, we work with about 75 farmers and artisans in North Carolina, and a total of 115 in the Carolinas.
Okay.
So when we're finding growers, they are GAP certified. We're working with growers to become GAP certified, and then we provide an insurance subsidy for small farms. And then as we pull on, typically small and mid-sized farms are looking to crop plan and grow other crops that can make them more profitable farms, more sustainable farms. Some already know what they want to grow, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And larger farms typically know most of what they'd already like to grow. So it's meeting farmers in their space with where they want to be, and then helping to find the end outlets for where we can get their products. Expanding, if a farmer wants to stay with farmers market, that's great. And if they want to go farmers market and wholesale, we'll work with them to meet them at that level.
That's really cool. For those who don't know, GAP certification is certified or organic. Is there anything else that goes along with that, or is it just strictly being able to grow, without pesticides and all the other stuff?
So GAP audits are actually that's more of a food safety audit, whereas organic
Oh, okay.
style of growing. So GAP stands for Good Agricultural Practices. It's an elected food safety audit. Farmers can be farmers without getting GAP certified. GAP is really what farmers need to progress into the wholesale space, because they bring in a third-party auditor who checks out the crops and the irrigation water and how the crops are being grown and harvested. And it's really anyone, whether you're a retailer or a wholesaler, we're typically requiring a GAP audit nowadays. And the level is a harmonized GAP. It's the combination of the original USDA GAP with FSMA, which has thus produced a harmonized GAP.
Okay, I see. And that's it's cool that you guys are working with those farmers, because that's not a cheap endeavor to get certified GAP, is it?
So it depends on the size of the farm and depends how many crops they're wanting to get certified. North Carolina, though, and major props to the Department of Ag, you guys provide an awesome cost share program to farmers, and that's been a huge help. Even in South Carolina, there's a great cost share program. So for farmers who want to become GAP certified, that's available. And then Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, we work with them really closely. Their food safety folks, Kim and Chloe, help farmers understand how to write their food safety plans and how to get audited. And they've been able to walk with farmers every step of the way and make it less daunting of an idea to bring someone onto the farm to look at how you're growing. And so there's a lot of folks who are working to connect farmers with how to get to the next step if they want to be there, whether it's on the technical side with cooperative extension and CFSA, or if it's more so on the monetary side of just helping to pay for it. So I would say it's because of kind of the past stigma that it was expensive, we're seeing more and more programs now that are helping to pay for that. So farmers, it's not as difficult for them. I would say, per year, you're looking at, depending on the size of the farm, for a harmonized GAP, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. So
Okay.
for that, and thinking through that and tapping into monetary support that already exists, just so it's in the back of your head when I'm selling my cases, I need to be planning for that, just like I would crop insurance or car insurance or any other annual expense that we have.
That's cool. Um, yeah, there's so much that farmers have to deal with anyway, a lot of obstacles. So it's good that there's programs out there that's making it easy for them and way more affordable. Let's see. So a lot of wholesalers are, this is a long question, so excuse me, I've got to read it off my screen. A lot of wholesalers are expanding into retail. Does Fresh Market have any plans for home delivery or direct-to-consumer shipping in any way, like a CSA box or a curated box with produce or other value items?
So Freshpoint, we currently don't pack a CSA box, but we do work with some CSA companies, and mainly because of our capability to aggregate from local farms. When possible, we work to backhaul from farms. So really, we've got trucks out on the road, they're coming back empty. Air is the most expensive thing to ship. So if we can stack back up, that's ideal. And it means that the farmer has less resources and time in delivering and being out in a refrigerated truck. So CSA companies, what we'll typically do is we work with them mostly on local produce, but then we've got some that request non-local produce. And since we can just bring it all together, we'll deliver out to them. And then they've got the labor, they're packing boxes and getting out to folks. And there have been a lot of incredible CSA programs that have come out of this past year, as well as CSA programs that already existed have expanded. So it's been amazing to see the interest in local sourcing and supporting local companies through CSAs and getting product from farms out to other locations. If it's, North Carolina apples to a CSA in Eastern North Carolina, we're kind of helping to bridge that span across the state.
Yeah, that's great work. And you're right. I was on a farm in Durham. A buddy of mine has a farm, Weaver Acre Farms in Durham. And they started out, I don't know how many times I've said this, before the pandemic started, they were selling to restaurants and kind of getting geared up for that. But that all changed, and now they're a 200-member CSA, and they're looking to grow that even more this year. So, yeah, it has been a good, it's been a weird, crazy, bad year, but there has been a few good things that came out of it. Hopefully people, when this passes, will keep in mind how this local market has kept a lot of people eating during this whole thing. Super important. I want to go back really quick and ask you a question about farmers. I just thought about this. I know that you said that a lot of farmers know what they want to plant. How often do they come to you saying, what do the chefs want, or what trends are you guys seeing? Like, what should we be planting? Does that happen very often?
Very often, yes. And I would say more often now that folks know we are wanting to crop plant and willing to crop plant and have some ideas and suggestions that we can provide. Usually small and mid-sized farms are folks who are looking to crop plant, and when we can crop plant specialty commodities, that's really a sweet spot for the farm to focus on. If they can build it into other markets that they're already selling to, they're really hitting a new nail on the head. So, like, for example, last year, I had crop planted green wasabi radishes with a farmer who was familiar with growing radishes, and this was same family, just used to getting a different seed variety and throwing it in the ground. And so when we brought in these green wasabi radishes, we had a chef who wanted to make an Asian dish where he was grating the wasabi radishes similar to how fresh wasabi is grated. So it brings together these ideas of culinary aspects from other parts of the world with local crops that can be grown here. So I think that's really a space to expand, is how can we help farmers understand what to grow and connect them with chefs and buyers and consumers at large. Because when you can give these flavors and these unique parts of what's growing into the hands of someone who wants something new, chefs are able to just create, immense dishes with flavor complexity and color that will keep consumers coming back to try it.
Yeah, it's really neat to see that kind of, I don't want to call it fusion food, but kind of, where a lot of chefs who want to cook regionally but use some different ingredients and, kind of maybe throw in some Asian flavors or some Spanish flavors into that, regional local palate, I think is really, really cool. So what are some of the challenges as a produce wholesaler do you face, and what are some of the more rewarding parts to your job with Freshpoint?
So there's a lot of pieces to juggle in supply chain. You're looking at shelf life with produce specifically matched with customer deadlines, and then the logistics of bringing product from wherever the growing region is, whether it's on the West Coast or here on the East Coast or locally, and then weather events like the rains that we're supposed to get tomorrow with the strawberries that are ready to be harvested. There's just a lot of moving pieces. So juggling those means that there's always going to be a challenge in the supply chain, but it also means that there's some great rewards when we can. I guess one of my favorite parts of what I do is when a farmer calls us and says, I have this bumper crop, I've got 80 extra cases of this or 30 extra cases of this that I need to move. And then we're able to navigate through the supply chain to find a chef who's interested in that crop, and then get the product to the chef and be able to go back to the farmer and say, we've bought it all. Or have the farmer call us and say, you bought all that I had available. Thank you so much. This is, I'm going to turn my crop under and do this now, or I can progress into this season. So even with the constraints on the supply chain, there's such a beauty in being ground level and working with folks day in and day out to just drive it through the system and make sure folks are getting local if they want local, or fresh produce at any, wherever they are, whether it's a high-end restaurant or anywhere else, anyone wanting produce.
Yeah. Other than produce, what other products does Freshpoint carry? You guys doing any local proteins or anything like that?
So we carry non-local dairy, and then on the local side, we've got local cheeses, local milk, local eggs, artisan-wise, jams, jellies, syrups, kombucha, honey, peanuts, grits, rice. I can keep going.
That's cool.
Local artisans. And so as folks come up with new products, or as customers reach out and say, hey, I saw this or heard of this, can you look into this artisan? We'll say, yeah, and make the contact and see if it's something that we can bring in.
That's a lot of fun. That's one of the things I enjoy about my role with the department, is helping chefs source things. That's a lot of fun because I know how important those ingredients are. So let's see, what's new and exciting for spring and summer? Sounds like a fashion question, but as far as what's coming out of the fields, what's hot this year?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the crop planting piece because it's so much of how I think that's the unique part of what we do. And so this spring, even this summer, we've got some new crops from semi-new from Row 7 Seeds. It's a really awesome seed company. If folks haven't heard of Row 7, I think you should definitely look them up. They're breeding seed varieties for flavor. And so we've got a couple farmers that are going to be growing habanero peppers, which is a habanero pepper with no heat. So it's like, it looks scary, but it's sweet and has this beautiful floral, almost citrusy tones to a pepper. But you get some of the qualities of a habanero pepper. So habanero peppers, really cool. Robin's coconut squash is another one out of Row 7 Seeds that we've crop planned with some growers. Looks like a butternut, but it has almost like a bronze coating to this squash.
Wow.
One of the best squash I've ever tasted. I had it at a farmer's market 2 years ago and was determined to see if we could ask some growers to grow it. So Robin's coconut's coming up. Casper Kale is another variety that I recently found out about a couple weeks ago that's being grown in California, but it's kale, so it can grow here too. So I've got a grower that's going to be growing that. There's so many other varieties. We've got another farmer who likes to grow tomatoes, and so he has reached out to a seed breeder called Wild Boar Farms, and this is one of the best heirloom tomato breeders, and I had never heard of them prior to this year. So the farmer was telling me about these varieties that he's bringing in, and he's really excited. So that farmer is in Concord. He's
Cool.
getting ready to put those plants in the ground, and I would say beyond that, we're really looking forward to regional specialties. It's really exciting when you can talk with a farmer and they can tell you about a seed variety that's important to their family or important to their community. And then we can share those seeds with chefs or with any consumer that's interested in them. We're actually, right now, we're able to get heirloom collards from a part of North Carolina where this specific variety of collards was developed in the early 1900s.
Wow.
I'm working to onboard a new farm around Western North Carolina that's in the Cherokee Nation, and they're working to expand the production of some traditional varieties and heirloom watermelon. And in Eastern North Carolina, we're looking at rattlesnake beans. In Western North Carolina, we're looking at Kennebec potatoes. So those regional traditions I think consumers are more educated in what they want with food, and for our role to be able to expand who can get those commodities throughout North Carolina and cherish and value them is really special. And I think I'm really excited about spring and summer. Every year at this time of year, I think, what's coming up? Where are we at? And so to think that those are on the docket, that's great. I'm I'm super
Yeah.
floored for that.
Yeah, I'm talking about regional specialties. One of my favorite things when summer rolls around are field peas. I love field peas. They're one of my, and I love all the different varietals, and I'm glad that they're gaining some popularity. I feel like, and I love both of these things, but I feel like bourbon and barbecue occupy a lot of the space in the conversation about Southern foods. And I want to talk about field peas more. So, you know, I'm glad I love those kind of crops. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to switch to the last question here really quickly. Now, you guys take buying local and being sustainable very seriously. Can you talk about that a little bit?
For sure, yeah. So every Freshpoint has a local program. I develop our local program for Freshpoint Raleigh, Freshpoint Charlotte. And beyond our local program, we have sustainability initiatives that can kind of, so I'll give an example. We source number two produce. So number two produce can come from both local farms and non-local farms, but we stock number two produce because in the food service industry, if you're chopping up a tomato for pico de gallo, then you don't necessarily need a number one tomato, and that can help
That's
the
right.
more profitable crop. So we source number twos and carry them for specific crops. We also backhaul from farms to keep farmers farming and not necessarily needing to deliver if they don't want to. We have an organic program that we bring in organic products, and we're also looking at how can we route as efficiently as possible. And we donate a lot to the food bank as well. So I would kind of lump that under the sustainability piece. It's
Absolutely.
overall, we're seeing impact in growing regions from the weather and the climate. And I see as we look at sustainable sourcing and local sourcing and the need to continue down this pathway, it has an immense impact. And we see how that can benefit us over the long run, but then also how it's going to benefit farmers and the environment. So looking at it from those perspectives, it's immensely important to source sustainably and source locally. And hence, this is my favorite shirt, so I figured I'd wear it with you today.
I was going to comment on that and tell everyone to do what Lauren's shirt says: eat local, buy local. No, that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out and having a little stove side chat. And I see you're in front of your stove there too. I like it. It's very cool. Yeah. So thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks so much, Chad. It's great to chat with you.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right. I'm not sure. Okay. Here we go. All right. Lauren Horning from Freshpoint. That was a good interview. I learned some things. So next week we have Butcher Ross Flynn from Left Bank Butchery and Alimentary. And then the last week we have Chef Patrick Cowden from Farmhouse Cafe in Wendell. He's doing some really cool stuff there. And then we're getting the next month planned out. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who said hello. And Mac, thank you. Country Redneck, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Laughing Spell, thank you. All right. See y'all next week.